Tonight, we enter the shadows of feudal Japan once more as we stealthily traverse the dangerous world of Tenchu. And if you find that this deadly tale resonates with your inner shinobi, please feel free to leave a like and consider subscribing for more content like this. It helps ensure that this video doesn't get banished into another realm alongside Lord Mayo. I would appreciate it, but for now, sip some herbal tea and get cozy as we embark on another deadly mission into the world of Tenchu. The full moon bathed Goda Castle in pale light, framing its stone walls in a silver glow. A shadow detached itself from the rooftop's edge, moving with preternatural grace across the weathered tiles. Rikamaru, ghost-like in his midnight black shinobi attire, paused at the central peak of the roof. His white hair, tied back tightly, caught the moonlight despite his attempts to remain invisible. The scar that ran across his right eye tightened as he narrowed his gaze toward the eastern forest. "You're late," came a soft voice from behind him. Rikamaru didn't turn. He had sensed Ayami's presence before she spoke. The subtle displacement of air, the nearly imperceptible sound of her foot touching down on the roof tiles. She moved beside him, her lithe form crouched low against the roof. Her twin blades gleamed momentarily as she adjusted them at her back. Dark hair framed a face that shifted easily between deadly focus and impish delight. Tonight, it showed only the former. Lord Goda's scouts returned, she informed him. Only one made it back. Rikimaru's jaw tightened. Rebel forces? No, Ayame replied. Something else. The survivor babbled about something more supernatural. But he died of his wounds before his words made any sense. Rikimaru reached for the hilt of his Ayoi, his hand resting on the katana with the familiarity of an old friend. Supernatural or not, everything bleeds. Spoken like a true optimist, Ayami said, a ghost of a smile crossing her face before vanishing. Lord Goda awaits us in the West Tower. Race you there. Before Rikimaru could respond, she had already launched herself from the rooftop, a shadow among shadows. He allowed himself the briefest smile before following her fluid movement across the compound. The West Tower's hidden chamber bore little resemblance to the opulent spaces elsewhere in Goda Castle. Here, maps covered rough wooden tables, weapons lined the walls, and the air smelled of ink, parchment, and decisions that would never reach public record. Lord Goda stood before the largest map, his normally confident posture betraying subtle signs of concern. His advisor, Sekia, hovered nearby, spectacles glinting in the lantern light as he marked positions with small stone tokens. Neither man looked up as Rikimaru and Ayami materialized near the entrance. 3 temples, Goda said without preamble. His finger traced a pattern across the northeastern territories, 3 temples under my protection have been attacked. No trace of survivors. No alkalites. Not even my scouts. It's as if everyone simply vanished. Ayame moved closer to the map. Except for the blood. Sekiya nodded gravely. The scouts found ritual markings, symbols unknown to our scholars. He unrolled a separate scroll, revealing crude drawings of circular patterns with archaic symbols. These were painted in blood on the central chamber of each temple. We believe these to be the work of the Burning Dawn, Lord Goda said quietly. A cult we thought defeated at the cost of your brother, Tatsumaru. The 2 ninjas looked down in solemn remembrance of their former friend. From the shadows, a labored cough announced a new presence. Leaning heavily on a gnarled staff, Master Shiunsai emerged into the remaining light. The elderly shinobi master, who had trained both Rikimaru and Ayame, rarely left his meditation chamber these days, making his appearance all the more significant. The Burning Dawn seeks that which was divided, Shiunsai said, his voice carrying surprising strength despite his frail appearance. 3 artifacts, 3 keys to summon a being who should remain banished. Lord Goda turned to the old master. You faced this being before? Yes. I helped defeat its last attempt at world conquest. Shiunsai's eyes clouded with memory. I was younger then. Stronger. His gaze settled on his former pupils. Now the burden falls to a new generation of Azuma. Rikimaru stepped forward. What are these artifacts? The Mirror of Smoke, the Jade Serpent, and the Demon Heart, Shiunsai replied. Separately, curious trinkets of minor magic. Together, though, his voice trailed off. Together, they can tear open the veil between worlds. Sekiya finished, adjusting his spectacles nervously. Ayame's expression darkened. And the 3 temples? They contained the relics, Shiunsai confirmed. Lord Goda rolled up the map with decisive movements. We have reports that one of the artifacts, the mirror, is being transported to an abandoned temple in the fog-bound forest. Ayame, I want you to intercept it. The kunoichi bowed deeply. It will be done, my lord. Goda turned his gaze toward the white-haired ninja. Rikimaru, intelligence suggests the cult's leader, a man called Kagami, operates from the ruins of Echigoya Manor. Learn what you can about his plans and the locations of the other artifacts. As you wish. Stay in the shadows, both of you. Shiunsai warned. The Burning Dawn possesses unnatural senses. As if in response to his warning, the remaining lanterns flickered momentarily, shrouding the chamber in darkness. When the light stabilized, the duo had already vanished, leaving only a gentle stirring of curtains to mark their departure. Lord Goda stared at the empty space where his Azuma had stood. Will they be enough, old friend? He asked Shiunsai quietly. The master closed his eyes. They must be, for all our sakes. The abandoned Echigoya estate rose from the mist-laden valley, like the skeletal remains of a once proud beast. Years ago, it had been a merchant prince's haven. Now, charred beams and collapsed wings spoke of fire and neglect. Local villagers whispered that Lord Echigoya's dabbling in forbidden arts had brought ruin upon his house. Rikimaru surveyed the compound from the branches of an ancient cedar that overlooked the northern approach. The main gate lay broken, its guardian statues toppled and half buried in weeds. But it was not the obvious entryways that concerned him. It was the subtle signs that belied the manor's abandoned appearance. Fresh footprints, partially concealed, lantern light that occasionally flickered behind paper screens in the east wing, the absence of wildlife near the walls. Someone had made efforts to maintain the illusion of abandonment, but to Rikimaru's trained eye, the manor practically hummed with hidden activity. He closed his eyes, centering himself. The key techniques Master Shiunsai had taught him allowed him to extend his senses beyond normal perception. The night's whispers grew more distinct. Hushed voices, metal scraping against stone, and somewhere deep within the compound, a rhythmic chanting that raised the hairs on his neck. Rikimaru moved from the tree, descending to the ground without disturbing a single leaf. The mist wrapped around him, a natural ally to his stealth as he approached the perimeter wall. Rather than target the gate or obvious entry points, he circled toward the rear, where a dried stream bed once fed the manor's ornamental ponds. As he suspected, the drainage tunnel remained, though now partially collapsed. He eased his body into the narrow passage. The tunnel smelled of stagnant water and something metallic, blood, recent enough that its scent lingered. Emerging into what once had been a serene garden, he immediately pressed himself against a stone statue. 20 paces ahead, a sentry stood with his back to the garden, a spear held loosely in his hands. Unlike the castle guards he typically encountered, this man wore no armor, only a crimson robe and a wooden mask carved with serpentine features. The guard's head tilted, like an animal sensing a disturbance. Rikimaru remained perfectly still, controlling even his heartbeat as the guard slowly turned toward the garden. The wooden mask gleamed dully in the moonlight, its eye holes revealing nothing of the man behind it. For what felt like an eternity, the guard stared directly at his position. Then, with a subtle shudder, he turned away and resumed his watch over the inner courtyard. Rikimaru moved like a shadow, closing the distance in 3 silent strides. His hand slid under the mask and clamped over the guard's mouth as Izuyoi pierced the man's ribs with surgical precision. The guard stiffened, then went limp. He lowered the body gently. As he dragged the corpse behind a cluster of overgrown bushes, something unusual caught his attention. The guard's skin was marked with intricate tattoos that seemed to pulse with a faint, phosphorescent glow. Even more disturbing, the face behind the mask bore ritual scarification, flesh deliberately cut and shaped to resemble the serpentine features of the mask itself. Rikimaru appropriated the man's mask and heavy robe. The garment felt unnaturally cold against his skin, as though it retained the chill of a grave. Muffled chanting drew his attention to the east wing. Following the sound, he discovered a section of floor that had been removed, revealing stone steps descending into darkness. With each step deeper, the air grew thicker with the smell of incense and copper. At the bottom, a narrow tunnel extended ahead, its walls carved with the same symbols Sekiya had shown on his scroll. He moved cautiously forward until the tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber that shouldn't have been possible beneath the manor. Ancient stone columns supported a ceiling lost in darkness. Dozens of red-robed figures formed concentric circles around a central altar where a man in elaborate robes stood with arms raised. "The Jade Serpent is in my possession." Kagami's voice echoed through the chamber. "The mirror comes to us even now, and the demon heart." He paused for effect. "The heart is being fed souls as I speak." The chanting intensified as Rikimaru pressed himself against a column. He had found Kagami and confirmed the cult's objective, but something told him this was merely the surface of a much deeper conspiracy. As he prepared to retreat and bring this intelligence to Lord Goda, a hand clasped his shoulder from behind. "Brother," a voice whispered, "you are needed for the ritual." Rikimaru turned slowly, the borrowed mask concealing his momentary surprise. Before him stood another masked cultist, but this one's eyes held a clarity the others lacked. "Unless," the cultist continued, his tone laced with both suspicion and recognition, "you are not who you appear to be, Azuma." The fog-bound forest earned its name honestly. Even on clear nights, mist clung to the ancient trees here, transforming familiar paths into labyrinths and muffling sound to eerie whispers. Local woodsmen avoided these woods after sunset, claiming the fog itself had awareness, that it guided the lost in circles until exhaustion claimed them. Ayame moved through this verdant landscape with practiced efficiency, her smaller frame allowing her to slip between the twisted branches where others would be forced to cut their way through. Unlike Rikimaru's methodical approach to missions, she preferred to maintain momentum. A constantly moving target was harder to track. The abandoned temple of Inazuma was her destination, once a sanctuary dedicated to mountain spirits, now a crumbling relic half reclaimed by the forest. According to Lord Goda's intelligence, the convoy carrying the mirror of smoke would arrive before dawn. As she traversed the canopy, leaping from branch to branch, Ayami spotted the first sign that the intelligence was accurate. A broken trail below, vegetation crushed by the passage of multiple people trying and failing to move quietly. Too many footprints for mere travelers, too deliberate for hunters. She paused on a thick branch, crouching to observe the trail. 5 or 6 individuals moved northeast, directly toward the temple. The convoy had been described as ceremonial, likely a dozen or more cultists. This smaller group moved with purpose but lacked the formation of an escort. Advanced scouts, perhaps, or something else entirely. Curiosity piqued. She decided to follow this group first. If they were indeed cult members, they might lead her to information beyond just the mirror's whereabouts. She paralleled their path from above, a sentinel ghost in the treetops. After 20 minutes, the group reached a small clearing where the mist seemed thinner. With the improved visibility, Ayame could finally assess her quarry. 4 men in travelling clothes, merchant's attire, not the crimson robes described in the reports. They carried no visible weapons apart from travelling knives, yet moved with the wariness of those accustomed to violence. At the clearing's centre, they unloaded a small, rectangular object wrapped in black silk from a pack. Ayame narrowed her eyes. That was no scout group. They carried the mirror itself. The intelligence had been wrong, or deliberately falsified. The main convoy might be a decoy, while this nondescript group transported the actual artifact through a less obvious route. One of the men unwrapped the silk just enough to check its contents. Even from her elevated position, she caught the unmistakable gleam of polished silver, its surface seemingly absorbing rather than reflecting the sparse moonlight that penetrated the canopy. "We're being watched," one of the men suddenly announced, his voice carrying clearly through the unnaturally still air. Ayame went motionless, controlling her breathing as the 4 men scanned their surroundings. Their movements betrayed formal combat training. These were no merchants. "There," the tallest one said, pointing directly at her position with unnerving accuracy. "One of the Azuma dogs." Abandoning stealth for speed, Ayame launched herself from the branch as a throwing knife embedded itself into the bark where she'd been perched. She somersaulted through the air, drawing her twin blades mid-descent. Landing at the clearing's edge, she immediately had to deflect 2 more knives with lightning-quick parries. "Okunoichi?" The man holding the mirror seemed genuinely surprised. "Goda sends a girl to do a warrior's work." Ayame's smile was cold and brief. "He sends what's necessary. In my case, it's overkill." The 4 men spread out to surround her, dropping all pretense of being merchants. Their movements were coordinated, practiced, each maintaining perfect spacing to prevent her from isolating any individual. "Take her alive," the leader ordered. "Lord Kagami will want to extract her knowledge of Goda's defenses." Ayame dropped to the ground as the first attacker lunged, sweeping her leg in a wide arc that caught his ankle and toppled him. Rolling beneath the second man's grasp, she came up with both blades, slashing across his stomach. His scream pierced the fog as he collapsed. The third attacker was more cautious, feinting before committing. Ayame met his hesitation with aggression, her right blade parrying his knife, while her left sliced across his throat in a spray of crimson. She pivoted immediately, expecting the leader's attack from behind, but found only empty space. The mirror. He was escaping with the mirror. Through gaps in the mist, she caught glimpses of the man sprinting toward the temple ruins, the wrapped artifact clutched under his arm. The remaining uninjured attacker moved to block her pursuit, but Ayame was done playing defensive. She threw one of her blades with deadly precision, the weapon spinning through fog before burying itself in the man's chest. Retrieving her blade from the fallen cultist, Ayame pursued the leader through the fog-shrouded forest. Unlike his methodical approach earlier, the man now crashed through the undergrowth with desperate speed. The sound guided her even when the mist obscured her vision. The forest thinned as they approached the temple grounds. Ancient stone torii gates loomed like sentinels from the fog, marking the boundary between mundane forest and sacred ground. The man passed beneath the first gate, and immediately the quality of the mist changed, thickening with purpose rather than drifting aimlessly. Ayame hesitated for only a heartbeat before passing through the gate herself. Immediately, the sound dampened to near silence. The man's footfalls, so clear just moments ago, became muffled and directionless. The mist coiled around her limbs like curious serpents. Ahead, the temple's broken silhouette emerged. A once grand structure with collapsed wings and a partially intact central hall. The leader was visible now, mounting the moss-covered steps toward the main entrance. Ayame sprinted after him, closing the distance with inhuman speed. At the temple threshold, the man turned, his face transforming as he pulled away a false skin to reveal intricate ritual scars beneath. His eyes gleamed with unnatural yellow light. "You're too late, Azuma," he said, his voice resonating oddly. "The mirror has come home." He unwrapped the black silk fully, revealing the mirror of smoke, a silver surface that reflected nothing, instead seeming to contain swirling darkness within its frame. As Ayame lunged for him, the leader raised the mirror toward the mist-strewn sky. The fog around the temple responded, rushing toward the artifact like water down a drain. The mirror's surface began to glow with unhealthy light as the mist was absorbed into it. Ayame's blade sliced through the air, only to pass through the leader's form as if he were made of the same mist being consumed by the mirror. His body dissipated into tendrils of fog, his laughter lingering as the mirror clattered to the ground, still drinking in the surrounding mist. Approaching cautiously, Ayame could now see that the mirror's surface showed not her reflection, but a vast chamber filled with red-robed figures, and at its center, a familiar white-haired form surrounded by cultists with drawn weapons. "Rikimaru," she breathed, reaching for the mirror, just as its surface erupted with blinding light. Rikimaru's mind calculated possibilities in an instant. The cultist who had discovered him was lean, with intelligent eyes that held no zealotry, unlike the vacant stares of the others in the chamber. Moreover, he had whispered his accusation rather than raising an alarm. "Who are you?" Rikimaru asked, voice barely audible. "Someone who, like you, wears more than one mask." The man's eyes darted toward the nearest exit. "We have perhaps 30 seconds before they notice our absence from the circle. Attack me or follow me, but decide quickly." Without waiting for a response, the man slipped into a shadowed alcove behind a fallen column. After a moment's hesitation, Rikimaru followed, every sense alert for treachery. The alcove concealed a narrow passage that the man navigated with the confidence of familiarity. "I am Tatsumaru," the man said, as they moved deeper into the darkness. "Shiunsai's spy within the burning dawn." Rikimaru's eyes narrowed, his hand gripping the hilt of Izayoi. "Impossible." Tatsumaru is dead. The man paused and removed his mask, revealing the face of his former friend. All right, I'll prove it. The plum tree in Master Shiunsai's garden. You, Ayame, and I carved our names beneath its lowest branch when we were children. You added a dragon, Ayame added a bird, and I added a tiger. Tension eased marginally from Rikimaru's shoulders. He's seen dark magic replicate faces before, but that detail was known only to the three of them, and Master Shiunsai, who had punished them all with extra training for defacing his beloved tree. You've been presumed dead, Rikimaru said. Why remain hidden for so long? Because what I discovered required deep cover. Tatsumaru led them into a small chamber lined with scrolls and maps. A single oil lamp cast weak light over the space. The burning dawn is merely the visible face of something far older and more dangerous. He quickly barred the door behind them before turning to face him. Kagami serves a master he's never seen, one he knows only as the Immortal. This entity communicates through the artifacts. Tatsumaru gestured to a scroll depicting the three objects from the tapestry. The mirror of smoke allows visions across both space and time. The jade serpent grants unnatural vitality. But the demon heart, his voice tightened. The heart consumes souls to fuel its power. The missing alkalites, Rikimaru concluded grimly. Yes, but not just for sacrifice. He unfurled another scroll, showing human anatomy with strange modifications. The burning dawn transforms chosen disciples through rituals that bind fragments of consumed souls to their bodies. That's why you saw the guards' tattoos glowing. Soon they'll no longer be human. A sudden commotion echoed from beyond the door, shouts and running footsteps. They've discovered your presence, Tatsumaru said, gathering essential documents. Tonight is more significant than a simple gathering. The binding ritual I mentioned. It will transform Kagami into a vessel capable of housing the Immortal. Then we stop it, Rikimaru stated simply. Not so simple. The ritual chamber has 20 elite guards, all soul-bound, and Kagami possesses abilities beyond normal men. The door shuddered under a heavy impact. Voices outside demanded entrance in the name of Lord Kagami. Tatsumaru's tone grew urgent. The mirror is already en route. The jade serpent is with Kagami, and the demon heart. He hesitated. The heart is here, within the ritual chamber. If they complete tonight's ceremony and unite all three artifacts, the Immortal will begin his conquest of the world once more, using Kagami as his vessel. The door splintered at its hinges as a blade chopped through the wood. Go, Tatsumaru urged, pointing towards a discreet passage. That leads to the old well shaft. It will take you to the ritual chamber. And Rikimaru. His expression softened momentarily. Tell Ayame I kept my promise to watch over you both, even from the shadows. As Rikimaru withdrew, the door gave way. 4 cultists surged into the room, their tattooed skin pulsing with unnatural light. Tatsumaru sprang into action, donning his mask and pointing in the opposite direction. There, I saw the intruder head that way, he insisted, feigning injury as he blocked the true path of their target. Rikimaru slipped behind the tapestry and into the narrow shaft as the guards took the bait. The sounds of pursuit faded as he descended, replaced by a different noise, rhythmic chanting that seemed to emanate from the very stones around him. The binding ritual was about to begin. The mirror of smoke lay inert on the temple steps, its surface once again darkened after the blinding flash. Ayame approached cautiously, blades ready. The vision of Rikimaru surrounded by cultists had vanished, but she couldn't dismiss it as an illusion. The danger to her fellow ninja felt undeniably real. As her fingers neared the artifact, the air around the temple thickened. The remaining mist coalesced, forming humanoid shapes that moved with deliberate purpose. Fog wraiths, creatures of legend that she'd dismissed as villagers' superstition until this very moment. One lunged for the mirror. Her blade passed through its form harmlessly as it gathered the artifact into its misty embrace. 5 more encircled her, their features constantly shifting between monstrous visages and human faces twisted in agony. A voice spoke from within the same man who'd seemingly dissolved moments earlier. The spirits of the fog-bound temple serve the burning dawn now. Azuma Ninja. Their essence feeds the demon heart, and the mirror opens the way. Ayame backed towards the temple entrance. What way? What are you attempting to unleash? Laughter echoed from the sinister spectres. Not unleash. Return. The Immortal was banished centuries ago by your ancestors. Now he reclaims what was always his. The wraiths closed in, their misty tendrils reaching for her. She felt the cold touch against her skin, not simply chilling, but life-draining, as though they sought to extract her essence. She slashed frantically, her blades creating momentary gaps in their forms that rapidly reconstituted. Retreating into the temple proper, Ayame's back pressed against a stone altar. The wraiths followed, but slowed at the threshold, seeming hesitant to enter the inner sanctuary. The mirror, carried by their leader, glowed more intensely as it approached the sacred space. Inspiration struck. The temple had been dedicated to mountain spirits, rivals to whatever entity these wraiths now served. Though abandoned, perhaps some protective influence lingered. She spotted faded characters carved into the altar behind her, prayer scripts, barely visible beneath centuries of moss. She scraped away the growth with her blade, revealing ancient invocations. The wraiths pressed forward again, but with visible difficulty, their forms disrupting at the edges. The one carrying the mirror remained at the threshold, unwilling or unable to cross. Ayame's fingers traced the characters, remembering the prayers Master Shiunsai had taught them as children. Mountain spirits, ancient guardians, she intoned, her voice cutting through the unnatural silence. I invoke your protection against that which violates sacred boundaries. The temple floor trembled. Dust shook from decaying rafters as the air inside the sanctuary grew warm in contrast to the deathly chill of the spectres. Your pathetic invocation cannot stop what comes, their leader hissed. The mirror has tasted you now, Kunoichi. It knows your essence, your connection to the other Azuma. Through you, we find him. The mirror pulsed, its surface again showing Rikimaru, now descending through what appeared to be a narrow stone shaft. Understanding dawned. Somehow, the artifact created a connection between the Azuma ninjas. If she could see Rikimaru, perhaps. Ayami closed her eyes, concentrating on the bond she and her shinobi brother shared. Rikimaru. Danger comes. The mirror connects us. They can track you through me. On the mirror's surface, Rikimaru paused, his head tilting as though listening. He looked up, seemingly directly at her, and nodded once. The fog wraiths surged forward, their determination overcoming the temple's resistance. She abandoned the altar and darted deeper into the sanctuary, searching for anything that might serve as a weapon against these incorporeal enemies. In the temple's innermost chamber, she found it. A ceremonial bell, green with age, hanging from a rotted wooden beam. Mountain temples used such bells to summon protective spirits and dispel malevolent influences. As the ghostly creatures poured into the chamber, Ayame leapt for the bell, striking it with the pommel of her blade. The sound that emerged was impossibly pure, cutting through the fog like sunlight. The wraiths recoiled, their forms destabilizing under the resonance. She struck again and again, each peal visibly diminishing the wraith's substance. The leader fought against the dissipation. The mirror clutched in its increasingly transparent grasp. This changes nothing, it gasped, the human voice breaking apart into discordant whispers. The ritual continues. Your partner walks into the heart of our power. With a final, desperate effort, Ayame struck the bell with all her strength. The ancient metal cracked under the impact, releasing a sound that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The wraiths dissolved into harmless mist, the mirror of smoke clattering to the stone floor as its bearer disintegrated. Breathing heavily, she approached the artifact. Its surface now showed only darkness. The connection to Rikimaru severed or temporarily disrupted. The warning had been delivered, but incompletely. Rikimaru faced danger at the Echigoya estate, and she was over an hour away. Securing the mirror, Ayame moved toward the temple exit, determination setting her features in a grim mask. She knew the binding ritual was beginning, and Rikimaru would need her help to stop it. The well shaft narrowed as Rikimaru descended, centuries of moss making the stone treacherously slick. The map Tatsumaru provided indicated the ritual chamber lay beyond the eastern wall, Rikimaru pressed his hand against the slimy stones, feeling a faint vibration, the chanting from within, growing more frenzied by the minute. A sudden awareness bloomed in his mind. Ayami's presence, a warning about the mirror forming a connection. He glanced upward, seeing nothing but darkness, yet somehow sensing her from a different location entirely. Rikimaru, danger comes. The mirror connects us. They can track you through me. The message came like a whisper against his consciousness. He nodded, understanding the implication. Whatever powers the burning dawn possessed, they now knew his position. Stealth was compromised. Only speed remained. He cracked the eastern wall with 3 precise strikes, creating an opening large enough to slip through. In the cavernous chamber beyond was a small stone pedestal at its center, surrounded by masked figures. The obsidian stone object on the pedestal seemed to be devouring the essence of the hooded forms, locked in fervent chanting around it. Veins of crimson pulsed across its surface as something ominous glowed from within. The demon heart, the final piece of the burning dawn's ritual. As Rikimaru approached, the heart's pulse quickened, as though recognizing his presence. Memories, not his own, flashed through his mind. Ancient battles, a betrayal centuries past, Azuma ninja sealing away a power too great to control. He shook away the mysterious reverie and cautiously moved closer through the throng of chanting ghouls. He seized the demon heart, wrapping it in cloth, torn from his disguise. The moment his fingers touched the artifact, even through the fabric, pain lanced up his arm, not physical, but spiritual, as though the object tested his worthiness. He turned to retreat, only to find his exit blocked. 3 figures emerged from the broken wall, their bodies grotesquely transformed. No longer fully human, their limbs had elongated into serpentine appendages, skin glistening with scales that caught the dim light. "The vessel comes," one hissed, its jaw unhinging to reveal needle-like teeth. "Lord Kagami will be pleased." Rikimaru drew Izayoi, the blade singing through the air as he cleaved the nearest creature's extended arm. Unlike normal flesh, the severed limb continued moving independently, coiling around his ankle while black ichor sprayed from the wound. Fighting the corrupted beings proved nearly impossible. Rikimaru leapt to the ceiling, rebounding between support columns as the creatures pursued with unnatural agility. Each strike from Izayoi inflicted damage, but failed to stop their advance. A narrow tunnel beckoned at the chamber's far side, an emergency escape route, if Tatsumaru's map proved accurate. He sprinted toward it, the demon heart secured at his waist, and the transformed cultist close behind him. Lord Goda stood at his castle's western rampart, watching dawn approach with growing unease. Beside him, Master Shiunsai meditated silently, his weathered face revealing nothing of his thoughts. "They should have reported back by now," Goda said, breaking the pre-dawn silence. Shiunsai opened his eyes. The Burning Dawn's ritual reaches completion with the rising sun. Time moves differently in their domain. Sakia approached, scrolls clutched to his chest. My lord, our scouts report strange phenomena throughout the province. Wells running dry, wildlife fleeing westward, and this. He unfolded a map marked with dozens of red dots. Every shrine and temple within 50 miles reports their protection charms have shattered simultaneously. Shiunsai rose shakily to his feet. He stirs. Who stirs? Lord Goda demanded. You've spoken in riddles since this began. I need clarity if I am to protect my people. The old ninja master gazed eastward, toward Echigoya Manor, silhouetted against the stormy sky. Long before your time, the first Azuma ninja fought a shadow war against one who had transcended mortality through forbidden arts. Neither fully alive nor dead, he commanded powers no mortal should wield. The Immortal, Sakia whispered. Yes, we could not destroy him, only seal him away, binding his essence to 3 artifacts and hiding them across the land. Shiunsai's hands trembled slightly. I was the youngest of that sealing circle, the last still living. Lord Goda's eyes widened. You cannot be suggesting. My time is long past when calculated by normal years, Shiunsai confirmed. The Burning Dawn seeks to release my old adversary, using Kagami as a vessel for his return. A messenger arrived, breathless, falling to his knees. My lord, fires have been spotted at Echigoya Manor. The entire eastern wing is ablaze. Lord Goda turned to Sekiya. Prepare my personal guard. We ride immediately. To what end, my lord? Sekiya asked. If Master Shiunsai speaks truly, what can conventional forces achieve against such power? We can buy time, Shiunsai said, reaching beneath his robes to withdraw a small jade amulet, while I attempt something far more dangerous. The tunnel Rikimaru traversed emerged in Echigoya's gardens, now transformed by unnatural growth. Plants twisted toward the manor's main hall, their structures altered to resemble organs of an immense body. He moved the stone slab back into place, sealing the tunnel behind him before the serpentine creatures could follow. Pausing behind a stone lantern, Rikimaru assessed his surroundings. Dawn approached, the sky lightening to deep blue. The heart at his waist pulsed more rapidly now, pulling toward the main hall where more ritualistic chanting emanated. Movement caught his eye. A familiar form sprinting across the outer wall, twin blades gleaming. Ayame had arrived, the mirror of smoke secured at her back. Their eyes met across the garden. Without words, they coordinated their approach, Rikimaru targeting the front entrance, while Ayame moved to create a diversion at the rear. Inside the main hall, Kagami stood transformed. His robes hung in tatters around a body that had grown a foot taller, skin marred with archaic patterns. Surrounded Tatsumaru, blood streaming from fresh wounds. The transformed cult leader addressed him in a cold tone. "You think I didn't recognize treachery? I've known your true allegiance for months." Kagami's movement blurred with supernatural speed as he seized Tatsumaru by the throat. "I kept you alive, specifically for this moment, when your Azuma blood will complete my transformation." The outer doors exploded inward as Rikimaru entered, his blade gleaming with spiritual energy. "Release him," he bellowed. "Ah, the second Azuma arrives with my heart." Kagami smiled, revealing teeth sharpened to points. "And the third approaches with my mirror. How considerate to deliver all I need." Suddenly, Tatsumaru drove a concealed blade into Kagami's wrist, forcing his release. He roared, the sound shaking dust from the ceiling. With impossible speed, he struck Tatsumaru with enough force to send him crashing into the altar. He then extended his arms outward as the first ray of dawn light pierced through the hall's eastern window. The demon heart at Rikimaru's waist tore free of its own accord, flying toward Kagami as Ayame burst through the rear entrance. "The mirror!" she shouted, trying to restrain the artifact as it similarly pulled from her grasp. "I can't hold it." Both artifacts orbited Kagami as his transformation accelerated, limbs elongating, skin hardening to a carapace-like texture. "Where is my serpent?" he demanded, reaching toward the space where it had been a moment earlier. The answer came as Master Shiunsai materialized, looking decades younger, the jade serpent clutched in his gnarled hands. "Looking for this, old adversary?" "You," Kagami hissed. "You survived all these years. Impressive." Rikimaru and Ayame attacked simultaneously from opposite sides, their blades infused with the spiritual techniques Shiunsai had taught them. Kagami deflected Rikimaru with a casual backhand, but staggered when Ayame's strike drew black blood from his shoulder. The mirror and heart continued orbiting, attempting to align with the serpent in Shiunsai's grasp. The old master began an incantation, ancient words that made the air shimmer with potential energy. Tatsumaru rose from the altar, blood streaming down his face. "Master, the reversal seal." Shiunsai nodded once, his chant shifting to a higher pitch as he held the serpent toward the rising sun. The jade artifact began to glow with emerald fire. "No!" Kagami roared, lunging for Shiunsai. Tatsumaru intercepted, driving his blade into Kagami's chest. "Now, master." Shiunsai brought the serpent down against the floor with stunning force, shattering the jade. Green energy erupted outward, catching the mirror and heart in its field. All three artifacts pulsed in synchrony. "What have you done?" Kagami growled, black blood pouring from his wound. "Reversed the ritual," Shiunsai explained, suddenly looking his true age again, perhaps even older. "Instead of bringing you fully into this world, the artifacts will now draw you back to your prison, along with your vessel." Kagami's form began to distort, parts of him becoming transparent as the artifact's energy intensified. With desperate strength, he grabbed Tatsumaru. If I go, your precious student accompanies me. Rikimaru moved to intervene, but Tatsumaru locked eyes with him, shaking his head slightly. Complete the seal, as we were trained. Understanding dawned in both ninjas' eyes. The three Azuma, forming a triangle around the artifacts, would strengthen the binding exponentially, but at a terrible cost. There must be another way, Ayami insisted. There isn't, Shiunsai said softly. Tatsumaru knows what's at stake and makes his choice freely. As the energy field expanded, Rikimaru and Ayame took their positions, forming the sealing triangle with Shiunsai. Together, they began the ritual that would bind the Immortal once more. The Dark Lord's form collapsed inward, dragging their friend with him as both were pulled toward the swirling artifacts. The last they saw of Tatsumaru was his features set in determination as he plunged his blade into Kagami's throat in their final moment of corporeal existence. Light erupted from the ritual circle, blinding in its intensity. When it faded, the artifacts were gone. So too were Kagami and Tatsumaru, leaving only scorched floorboards where they had stood. Shiunsai collapsed, caught by Rikimaru before he hit the ground. It is done, the master whispered. For now, at least. Lord Goda arrived with his forces to find Echigoya Manor largely destroyed, the unnatural growths already withering under normal sunlight. In the main hall, he discovered his Azuma ninja kneeling beside their fallen master. Shiunsai lived long enough to explain what had transpired and to extract one final promise from his students: to establish a new hiding place for the knowledge of the binding ritual should the Immortal ever threaten to return. As dawn fully broke over the province, Lord Goda stood with Rikimaru and Ayame on the manor's ruined steps. Tatsumaru's sacrifice will be honored, he promised, though we can never speak publicly of what occurred here. Some battles remain in shadow, Rikimaru acknowledged. And some heroes as well, Ayame added, glancing toward the space where he'd disappeared. The shadows are where we belong, Rikimaru said, following her gaze. It is the way of the Azuma. Together, they turned from the ruins, their path leading back to Goda Castle and whatever new threats might emerge from the darkness. Behind them, several white plum blossoms drifted down to rest upon the spot where Tatsumaru had last stood, their leaves unfurling into the unmistakable shape of a tiger. Some whispered later that Tatsumaru had survived, watching over the province from the shadows. Others claimed his ghost protected travelers in the fog-bound forest. Lord Goda never commented on such rumors, but he did order an extra place set whenever he dined privately with his Azuma ninja, a silent acknowledgement of an absent friend who might, someday, return from the shadows.